The year is 2020, and the pandemic has spread across the globe. As nations resort to martial law, the morale of the people is at an all-time low, and the doomsday clock clicks closer to midnight. Tick, 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 tick. The toilet paper has been stocked, the pantry shelves are full, and the children are being entertained. But what happens to the souls of the caretakers, the adults, the taxpayers? One has the answer. One man will nourish the masses with that which will soothe the growing anxiety, and he will do it without means. Dear adult viewer, press play, like, and subscribe. For when you subscribe to the music and tales of the classy bastard, you enter the quarantine zone.
Well, hey there. I didn't expect to see you this evening. No. That's okay. Stay. The more the merrier, I always say. You might be asking yourself, why am I drinking a scotch and smoking a cigar in bed? And the answer is simple. I'm waiting for my evening rendezvous, we'll call it. And you are a welcome addition. This evening, to start the festivities, we will be reading a chapter of LongArm and the Panther Mountain Shootout by Tabor Evans. The tagline reads, "You can run from LongArm, but you can't hide." So, what I'm thinking now is, I'm going to set down my scotch, I'm going to set down my cigar, and we're going to read a chapter. But first, we're going to need to get a little more comfortable. There we are. That's much better. Chapter 1. Deputy U.S. Marshal Custis Long, known by the nickname LongArm to friend and foe alike, snapped awake in his lumpy, run-down brass bed like someone had just cracked a bullwhip over his crotch. He blinked his way to full consciousness, scratched himself, stared hard at the grime-smudged ceiling overhead, then ran fingers through his shoulder-length hair and sniffed. Approaching day crept into the windows of the rented corner room like a thief bent on stealing the darkness. The faintly musty smell of burning leaves drifted in through one of the open windows. Clouds of dust particles gently floated back and forth on slanted shafts of light. Dirt devils chased each other across the scruffy, warm carpet, then disappeared beneath the bed. Long flicked his tongue across the back of his sleep-coated teeth. They felt and tasted vaguely like a saddle blanket after a week's use. He grimaced. A quick swish and swallow from a bottle of Maryland rye helped some, but not a hell of a lot. His sleep-sodden gaze rubbered around the well-used residence and took in the sad, old-as-dirt examples of a dressing table, washstand, and badly discolored mirror. Piles of clothing, both male and female, littered the tattered gray carpet that covered most of the stained, pockmarked hardwood floor. A strikingly beautiful, stark-naked female lay sleeping on her stomach beside him. She snored like a dull ripsaw chewing through 1,000-year-old pine knots the size of wagon wheels. Bow-tie-shaped, naturally red lips fluttered with each ragged, passing breath. The snoozing lady's waist-length, ebony-colored hair cascaded across one shoulder and dropped over the side of the bed. Her flawless and perfectly muscled back robes fell and rumbled in the rhythm of deep, comfortable, relaxed slumber. Long's gaze skipped over his companion's silken locks, past her milky white, unblemished skin, and zeroed in on the kind of splendidly formed female ass that had the power to make any real man want to eat lunch off of it, then cuddle up with the wondrous thing draped over his head like a well-fitting, comfortable hat. He smiled at the thought of how a properly shaped woman's ass resembled an inverted heart when studied from just the right angle. After a mere 5 seconds of serious scrutiny of the subject at hand, his now fully awake law dog felt about as agitated and randy as a Sonoran desert horned toad sitting in a red-hot camp skillet. Unbridled lechery reared its never-satisfied head between his legs in a rapid rush of intense, prickly heat, producing an angry, growing iron bar of rampant lust. He turned on to his side and nestled the inflamed evidence of his yearning against the lady's shapely hip. Settled on one elbow, Long ran his fingertips in light circles from the nude woman's shoulders down, down, down to the moist center of her being. By the time he reached the object of his unrelenting, penetrating efforts, she stirred, twitched, snorted, slapped at the invading fingers, and then giggled. "My God, Custis, you are an insistent scamp. Didn't you get enough last night? Thought for a while there you were about to wear the poor thing out. Sweet Jesus! I feel like I just traveled from Denver to San Francisco and back straddling a Butterfield stagecoach. Could be because of the ride you gave me, though." He leaned forward, then breathed into her ear. "Hell, Tildy, I can't ever get enough of you, girl. You know that now. Why don't you roll on over here and see if it's possible to do the big wiggle till our heads explode like a sack full of dynamite in a Leadville mine shaft? Hell of a way to start the day, don't you think?" She hooted, flipped onto her back, eased her shapely legs apart, smiled enticingly, then sucked the index finger of one hand, while caressing a pair of pert, beautifully formed breasts with the other. LongArm pushed her hand aside, settled between her parted thighs, kissed her full on the mouth, and reveled in the pungent taste that reminded him of all the wondrously decadent things they'd done the night before. Tildy's arms wrapped around his neck and forced his greedy mouth down to a pair of waiting, bullet-stiff nipples. She moaned as his eager and talented tongue flicked its way around each one. Somewhere outside the bedroom's open windows, birds sang. The take-no-prisoners warrior between Long's legs stiffened to the harder than a cavalry saber state. Love lust and the hunger that couldn't be denied propelled him forward. The black-haired Tildy whimpered as he dipped into her wet, waiting sweetness, like a pair of well-stoked locomotives gathering steam. The couple quickly pumped their primitive rhythm up to the boiler-busting pace. All the heart, effort, and invigorating carnality of exertion caused the lady's agile body to flush with a passionate, reddish sheen from the edges of her blood-engorged nipples to the top of her head. He almost laughed out loud when she brought her hips up as high as she could, bent her neck forward, and strained in an effort to see as much as possible of what was going on in between her raised legs. Matilda Potter worked hard, equaled, and sometimes surpassed his every stroke. He'd give her that, but when she gasped, arched forward like a tightly strung bow, and watched wide-eyed as he thrust into her, Long held the rigid, muscle-quivering position of climax for almost a minute, then kissed her again and finally rolled away. A short time after completion of their impassioned, early-morning lovemaking, the raven-haired beauty slipped from his side, dressed and stood with one hand on the doorknob of his room. She ran a quick, appreciative gaze over his unclothed, exposed form. Her tongue moistened dry lips as she admired the particular portion of his muscular anatomy that kept her coming back for more every time he was in town. Will I see you again before the end of the week, Custis? He raised both arms above his head and posed in the rumpled bed in a way that ensured she saw exactly what she wanted. Should be able to see about as much of me as you want right now, girl. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Long flashed a toothy grin and lifted one leg so the view became even more provocative. I doubt it, Tildy. Would be great if we could get together sometime soon. But I've got a meeting with Marshal Billy Vale this morning. If the note he sent me is any indication of what's in store, I'll be on a train and gone pretty quick. Not sure how long it'll take before I'm back in this stable. She snatched the door open, winked, and said, Too bad. This filly's got an itch only a randy stallion with equipment like yours can scratch. But you be sure and let me know as soon as you're ready for another romp. You'll do that, won't you? Don't you worry, Tildy, darling. You'll be the first to know when I make it back to Denver. Promise. Well, that's good to hear, Custis, darling, 'cause I can't wait to continue our efforts at trying to determine if it's possible to kill or at the very least maim ourselves making love like a pair of wild Texas Mustangs, big boy. Next time out, I just might even bring along some Mexican spurs in my riding crop. With proper application of the whip, I'd be willing I can urge you right along to even greater levels of performance than anything you've dreamed of so far. Nothing I'd like better, he said. She flashed another winning smile, winked, then quietly closed the door behind her. Long closed his eyes and tried to visualize Tildy Potter dressed in nothing but a sombrero, high-heeled riding boots, Mexican spurs, and slapping a riding crop across her palm. Hot damn, he said to the empty room. That's the first chapter of LongArm.